Hi guys, my name's Caitlin. I'm a holistic nutrition consultant and the author of a blog called grassfedgirl.com. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. Usually we talk about Hashimoto's and thyroid health and carnivore diets on this channel. So if that's something you're into, then stay tuned. We're going to be tackling a big question I get all the time, which is, what do I feed my baby? So he's 17 months now. And a lot of people ask me, is he carnivore? And a lot of people ask me what I feed him and what kind of approach I'm using and all that stuff. So we're going to talk about all that today. So stay tuned all the way to the end and find out if my baby is a carnivore. If you find this video helpful, please share with your friends, subscribe, leave a comment. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Carnivore by definition is anybody who eats meat. So I guess if you use that definition, you could say my baby is a carnivore, but I don't exclusively feed him a carnivore diet. I figure a carnivore diet is good for people who have a lot of health conditions or have just hit a wall with everything else they've tried. So I don't think people need to start out their life on a carnivore diet necessarily. And a carnivore diet I would define as having no plants at all, or very, very minimal plants. So I didn't think that my baby needed that because he really is super healthy and he doesn't have any health issues. So I was like, I think I will follow a paleo diet, more so of a Weston A. Price kind of paleo-ish approach, because I followed a paleo diet for 9 or 10 years before I found the carnivore diet. And it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot with my thyroid and my Hashimoto's. Helped me balance my blood sugar. At one point, when I first got sick, I was barely able to get out of bed. So going on a paleo diet really helped me a lot. It was a lifestyle I could sustain, but the problem was I still had a lot of digestive issues. So that's what led me to the carnivore diet. My thyroid got a lot better, my Hashimoto's antibodies lowered, and all that stuff on a paleo diet. But then when I tried the carnivore diet, my digestive problems got better. So that was why I transitioned, if you don't know the whole story. There's lots of other videos on that. I have a whole thyroid playlist. But anyway, so I thought, well, paleo diet is ancestrally appropriate diet. It's a diet where we did not eat a lot of grains and beans because those were before the agricultural revolution. So it's kind of like whatever we could have eaten before we started living in one place and growing our own crops. So before we started eating corn, soy, and wheat, lots of wheat, a heavily wheat-based diet. So none of that on a paleo diet. So mainly it's just meat, eggs, vegetables, and fruits, and nuts and seeds. So that's kind of where I started out with my baby, as an approach. I'll get into the more specific what I feed him in a minute. When I was in nutrition school, I studied a lot of Weston A. Price information. So if you don't know, Weston A. Price was a dentist who studied cultures around the world who ate their indigenous diets before the Western diet was introduced to them, and they had very good dental health. And so he hypothesized that the reason that they had good dental health was because they didn't eat grains and sugar and seed oils that were introduced later by shipping and things like that, where colonization or so whatever they ate around their natural environment before they had an introduction of foods that were from the West, I guess, something like that. So there is I think a lot of great merit to what he found. And, I do think that sugars and grains and seed oils, such as vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil, are the worst things for us to eat. So that is why I wanted to kind of stick with a paleo Weston A. Price approach for my baby. And that was the same kind of approach I went into, for preconception. So I made sure my nutrition and everything was up while I was trying to get pregnant for many, many years. And then after I had him, I just continued to eat the same way. And a carnivore diet, what is so great about that is it doesn't have the anti-nutrients. A lot of the whole Weston A. Price philosophy is to get rid of anti-nutrients. So soak your grains, soak your beans, sprout things, and that reduces the anti-nutrients. Well, the carnivore diet just takes all the plants out, and then you have no anti-nutrients, and you just have digestible, bioavailable animal products. And those are very high in vitamin A and D, which is the things that Weston A. Price thought were so important for healthy gums and teeth and good skin and all those kinds of things. So this was a book I used a lot before I got pregnant. I read a lot of it. I didn't have much time after I got pregnant, but I knew the basics. This is called the Nourishing Traditions Book of Baby and Child Care. So this has a lot of nutrition recommendations, especially for how to start your baby. And you can find this down in my Amazon shop below. But it's written by Thomas Cowan, who is a famous physician from the Bay Area, as well as, of course, Sally Fallon. And it has just so many good ideas about how to give a baby a nourishing beginning. Because, you know, the thing is, when a baby is born, its digestive system is very undeveloped, and it has porous lining of the small intestine. So that is where we absorb our food, the nutrients from our food. And it has, if it's not sealed well, then it can, food can get out into the digestive system and cause allergies and all kinds of food sensitivities and all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to make sure that is sealed up before we start giving foods that are hard to digest. So one of the foods that's most, I think, problematic is rice cereal. And that's one of the first things that babies are given. And I was definitely not going to give my baby rice cereal. He was breastfeeding. I will make a separate video all about breastfeeding if you want to know about breastfeeding. But now he's 17 months old and he's still breastfeeding. So I was feeding him every single minute, every single day, all the time, especially when he was younger. So I did not rush the food at all. So I waited till 6 months before giving him table food. I was not in any rush because, like I said, about the gut, the leaky gut, you do not want that to be a problem. So you want to wait till that gut is sealed, and you don't introduce any foods that are going to exacerbate the gut lining being porous. Okay, so you do not want the gut lining to have a lot of permeability, and that would increase food sensitivities. So I waited until 6 months. So the only reason I could see, I had a friend who had trouble breastfeeding, and she introduced food a little earlier because she wanted to reduce, she did not want to give her baby a lot of formula or reduce the amount of formula. So she introduced food earlier. In that case, I guess it was a good idea because she was not liking the formula, and so she was trying to get the food in faster or earlier. But for my case, I really didn't see any reason because the baby was so happy with the breast milk and he was growing so well. He was always ahead of the growth charts and everything. So I didn't have any problems. So I just waited until 6 months. So I would say do not rush at feeding solids. People try to do it at 4 months, and I don't see the reason because it's just breast milk is best, of course. Fed is best. You know, if you're having trouble with breastfeeding, then, you know, that's a whole nother topic. But try to feed them all the way up till 6 months with breast milk. And then I definitely did not stop. I'm still 17 months nursing. So, but I thought at 6 months, introducing solid foods would help him to sleep more at night and like feed less often. Unfortunately, that did not work, but it was a nice try. So the foods that I introduced first were egg yolks. I tried to do egg yolks. I wasn't very good at figuring out how to cook them. Some people say just cook them very lightly with you can add some breast milk into it, like after you cook it. I could never really figure that out. So I just ended up doing like scrambled eggs because I was just lazy. I didn't want to do the whole separating and So I just kind of just did scrambled eggs, and he loves scrambled eggs. He still loves scrambled eggs. That's probably his favorite food. He'll eat them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, some people say there's problems with the egg whites, but he didn't really have any problems with the egg whites. He just chowed it down. I just did scrambled eggs. I always try to buy pastured eggs, such as something like a Happy Egg or a Vital Farms, or go to your local farmer and get eggs. Those are always the best. So we did that. That was his main thing, and he loves ground beef. So I'll show you. He has ground beef so often, and that was already kind of a little bit chewed up. I would often chew his meat. Anytime I gave him meat, I would chew it first and just put it on the plate. You know, some people get into all this baby food and purees and all this stuff, but I hate washing dishes and all that stuff. So I would just chew a little piece of meat and stick it on his tray, and it was always just whatever we were eating. So I eat a lot of steak and a lot of hamburger because I'm on the carnivore diet, and I would give him that, and he loved it. So he immediately loved ground beef and steak and all that. Now, I also learned about the baby-led weaning approach, and I thought that was interesting, but because my goal was to try to get him to sleep more at night, baby-led weaning is where you cut off a big hunk of food, and especially meat is what I would do, and then give him a piece of it, and he would just kind of gnaw on it, and they don't really get a lot of the food. They just kind of learn about food and holding it, and I'm sure they break down some of it with their spit and stuff, but they don't get a whole lot of it. And I think it's a great approach, but I wanted him to really get those calories and get the protein, and so I would just opt for chewing it up and giving him little bites, and that seemed to work the best for me. Now, if you're like, oh, I work at home, so I was always home, and it was easy for me to cook. Now, if you're having to prepare food ahead of time, you have a whole different system that I would. So you may need to puree stuff and all that. And I didn't do a lot of vegetables at first because, again, I just was lazy to chop them up and whatever. And I bought like some butternut squash that was already cut, and I would give him little cubes. It was like organic, and I would just steam it and give him like a cube of that, and it was so soft. And but we didn't have a lot of vegetables, and I wasn't going to give him, I followed also the Paul Saladino approach, where I didn't want to give him vegetables that had a lot of anti-nutrients, so I tried to give him more things like fruit or easy to digest veggies. Like I didn't want to give him cauliflower or broccoli or edamame, or it's not really a vegetable, but something like that. I did not want to give him because I didn't want something that was really hard for him to digest. So I didn't really fool with a lot of vegetables. If I did something, it would be maybe some baked steamed sweet potato, or like I said, the butternut squash. And of course I ended up giving him a lot of blueberries and raspberries and blackberries, whatever was kind of easy and in season. And I tried to get organic in that because those are heavily pesticide sprayed fruits. So he loved blueberries, and that is just his number one food. So basically his number one foods are blueberries and the ground beef and the scrambled eggs. And so those were like the things that he gravitated towards. And, if we had fish, or he loves, anytime we had seafood, he would eat the fish, or he would loves shrimp. He still loves shrimp. The other night I gave him like a whole fillet of this kind of wild salmon that I cooked in the air fryer, and he ate this whole thing. This is like 4 or 5 ounces, and he loves that. He has a big appetite now. He can eat about 3 eggs. Here you can see one of his typical breakfasts. And I give him butter. Sometimes so try to get, see, this says pasture raised cows. So this kind of butter has more vitamin A and D, and Weston A. Price thought those were called Activator X, and he thought those had special powers to create vital health. So that's what's also in cod liver oil. It's the vitamin A and D. So, in vitamin K, those are all really important for bone health and skin, and your cells are just dying for those. And that's why so many people are struggling on plant-based diets, because they don't get those things. And my baby did have an allergy to pasteurized dairy. So later on, I'd try little pieces of cheese or some milk. And sometimes he would get it off other people. Maybe he'd go to his grandparents or his cousins and have a little bite of something. And then he would break out with a rash of eczema. And I found that giving him A2 milk was really helpful. So later on, I found a local farmer that makes A2 milk, has A2 cows. Those are a kind of a heritage breed of cows, and a lot of people can digest that better. Goat milk is also an A2 animal, so you can also do goat milk. And I gave him pasteurized goat milk before I found there's a local goat dairy that is here that I would buy at Whole Foods, and he liked that too. I would give him the pastured goat milk, and then I found the A2 farmer, and he drinks that now, and he has no reaction. So, but if he ends up getting pasteurized dairy that is from a regular cow, he has the eczema coming back on his back and everything. So I stick with that, and it goes really well. So, you just have to experiment a little bit if your baby has trouble with certain foods. Make sure and get some liver in there. I always try to get, this one is a mix, so it has the organ blend. So that is something he would eat, and he wouldn't even know it at all. But he likes liver. He just eats whatever I give him pretty much. But liver has all the vitamins. It's like taking a multivitamin. And, some people worry it has too much vitamin A, it has toxicity, but I always go to Chris Kresser, and he says that it's almost impossible for that to happen. So I think that's a great resource if you're wondering about vitamin A toxicity, is listen to some Chris Kresser. He has some great information about that. Sardines are a great food to give your kid. They're very soft, and if they have any bones, they just kind of dissolve in your mouth, and they're hand size. So when you put these out, this is a good brand, Wild Planet. These are a great way to get your omega-3s for babies. So my sister's son ate these almost every day when he was little, and they're really good for brain health. So that would be something. I need to give these more to Noah, because I forget about them sometimes. And then this is a baby food brand that's really good. It's all paleo, and they use bone broth and organic veggies and no bad oils. So this is something that I gave him when they sent me a huge box of it when he was younger, and he liked it. He ate a lot of it. He ate almost all of it. So this is good, something if you're on the go. They have this at Whole Foods. But like I said, I wasn't really just gonna make my own because I just didn't have the energy or whatever. So this has organic peas and carrots. And so this would be something that I would give him on the go. And he liked this, but he preferred having a lot of control over his food, and he loved using his hands. So I didn't do a lot of purees because it just didn't seem to fit his eating personality, if you will. I will say what I did like about baby-led weaning is that it just kind of lets the kid be in control, and I really like that philosophy. Just let them just eat kind of how they want and express themselves and with their hands, and he just loved that. He loved eating, but every month after 6 months, he would show more interest. So if your baby's not super interested at first, don't give up. Just keep on, and once they're done, once they start throwing food on the floor, then don't keep them locked in the chair. Just move on and let them try again another day, and just try not to be overly controlling, because you want them to have a good experience with food and not, create a lot of food aversions. And he really doesn't. Now, if he doesn't see a food that he's familiar with, he might just kind of not be too sure about it. Like, he doesn't eat a lot of sweets and things. Like, even if I give him a bite of like a keto brownie or something like that, he's like, what is this? I don't know what it is. And he just like doesn't care about it. So I guess that's a good thing. He will, but I'm not saying he's perfect. Like, sometimes when we're out, he'll have like a rice cracker, or I always, again, try to get organic. But if we're in the car, he might have some sort of a little snack that is maybe a puff, but I don't feed him gluten. I don't feed him Cheerios. But they do make some rice crackers for babies that are organic. I think it's Happy Tot brand, and they seem okay. And he'll eat those sometimes, especially if he's with a friend and they have that same kind of cracker. And but those are about the only things I give him. He's had a Perfect bar, which be careful with a Perfect bar because they have honey, but they do have peanuts in them also. So that could be, I think you're not supposed to give them peanuts until they're a year old, or honey. So be careful with a Perfect bar, but they, so that's kind of a snack, but I would give them just half because they have a lot of sugar in them. So not a lot, but they have about 12 grams of added sugar. Okay, so then I would only get 6 grams. So I always think about from a blood sugar stabilization standpoint. So how much sugar could I handle, for example? I've worked really hard to get my blood sugar under control. I used to be very hypoglycemic and always carrying a candy bar or a protein bar, which are more like candy bars, in my purse. And so I think about, I don't want his blood sugar being erratic. So I try to give him protein, fat in a combination with carbs if I'm going to give him carbs. So I want him to not shoot up and then drop down because that might affect his mood and his sleep and all that. So, and of course he's still drinking tons of breast milk every single night, every single day. So that has a good combination of fats and proteins and a little bit of sugars as well, natural sugars in breast milk. So that's pretty much what he eats. And he is not 100% carnivore. I use a paleo, Weston A. Price approach just because I've studied nutrition for 10 to 12 years now. So that is what I picked up along the time. And, he does not have any health issues other than the dairy sensitivity. So I'm just going to go along like that, try to stabilize his blood sugar, keep him full with protein and fat. That feeds your brain. And he seems to be doing wonderful. He's a beautiful child. He is in the 90th percentile. He's 30 pounds. He's 17 months. So we've almost made it 18 months to nursing, and I don't see any end in sight. I don't know how to be a mom without nursing now. So we'll probably just go to 2 years and see how it goes. Maybe he'll end it himself, and we'll just see. But it's going pretty well, and it's just kind of an easy thing, and nursing's so portable. And then now he's kind of eating about 2 meals a day. He seems to not, I don't really do 3 meals because it's a lot of cleaning up and you got to change their clothes and all this stuff. So he's kind of gravitated towards 2 meals. So we'll usually do a big breakfast, and then maybe at dinner time when his dad is home, we'll have a bigger dinner, or it just depends. If we're at a restaurant for lunch, maybe he'll have lunch. It's just kind of go with the flow, whatever the family's doing, and it suits our schedule. So that is my approach. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I really appreciate you watching. If you want to get started on the carnivore diet, I don't think it's necessary for kids at all. But if you're an adult and you want to start the carnivore diet, then you can get my ebook. It is 182 pages. It is a great resource. You'll learn everything you need to know about a carnivore diet. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment below on how you started feeding your baby when they were 6 months, or if you started feeding them early, let me know. Or if you ate rice cereal and you regret it, let me know down below.